Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Stephen Strang. He's the author of a new book called God and Donald Trump. Mr. Strang, in the book itself, you say that Donald Trump is an enigma. I think a lot of people feel that way about him for a lot of different reasons. How do you say that he's an enigma?
Well, we were talking about it earlier. You know, his lifestyle has not exactly been a Christian lifestyle, even though he was raised in the church and went to Norman Vincent Peale's church. I go into all this in God and Donald Trump to try to explain the man, but also to ask the question, what is God saying in our country? That's really why I wrote the book, is I wanted to at least put it out so I could do interviews like this. And I've done a lot of media talking about this. And you know, a lot of people think, well, maybe I don't understand this, but maybe there's something to it. Because there were specific prophecies, as we talked about earlier, that said that he would be elected president, and he was, against all odds. In fact, the reason I went up to the election night party, other than being invited, was because I believed that he was going to win. And I wanted to be there for that historic moment.
You also describe him in your book as a brash self-promoter. That doesn't sound like somebody who would get the largest amount of votes from evangelicals in the history of the country.
You're absolutely right. And
so how was he able to attract those people to him? Was it because he was such a great self-promoter?
That's a good question. You know, he met with evangelical leaders in June before the election, and that was really a turning point. He said what they really wanted to hear in terms of what was important to him in his platform, in how he was going to govern, and they believed he's our champion. Plus, remember who he's running against. He was running probably against the most corrupt person to ever run for president, and a person who would have increased partial birth, or allowed partial birth abortions, and a lot of other things that those of us who go to church and read the Bible and try to follow God, we don't like that stuff, and we wanted our country to head in a different way. And I believe that he's shifting it in a positive way.
But there are many people who felt like they voted in 2016 based on which candidate they disliked the least. So he won in part, you do believe, because he was running against Hillary Clinton.
Oh, absolutely. You know, in some ways it's like anybody but Hillary. However, he surprised us. He's become the champion of Christian causes, even though he is not a very pious Christian himself.
And yet the entire time he's been president, he's been beset by one controversy after another, questioning his veracity, his ethics, and of course we've got this whole Russian investigation that's going on. How does he maintain his support, particularly among his base, which so much of it is the evangelical vote?
Well, he's been controversial since the time he came down the escalator announcing he was running for president, and everybody thought that he would flame out. You know, like, remember Edmund Muskie or Gary Hart? You know, it was one flub and they were out. But a New York Times reporter who interviewed me not long ago said that he defies gravity. You know, things that would bring down anybody else doesn't bring him down. But the fact is that he has produced for things. He's helping the Christians in the Middle East. He moved the embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He's doing the things that we feel is important. And in American politics, don't we always support the people or the politicians that we think will do the best job with the policies that are important to us?
But how do evangelicals see past his lifestyle to see that he's doing the things they want to do? I mean, it would seem pretty easy to say, well, he can't be one of us. He doesn't believe in our values. He doesn't act out our values. But yet they stick with him.
That's right, because everyone who's an evangelical, which means somebody who's accepted Christ as Savior, knows that God can change lives. And he says he's changed. And we weren't electing a Sunday school teacher-in-chief or a pastor-in-chief. We were electing a commander-in-chief, and I personally think he's done a great job.
But he's had multiple divorces. He's had alleged affairs, some of which are just now coming out while he's president. His language in the Access Hollywood video that you talked about there, this all came out during the 2016 campaign. Other things have come out since, yet he continues to be he continues to stay up, as you mentioned with the New York Times reporter. So how does he do that? How does he manage to get that done? Is that some kind of intervention from God that helps him be able to do that?
Well, I believe that, like I said, that he's changed, and people understand that, and they see it, and they like the policies that he's doing.
You describe him in many of the things he's had a problem with as a man of the world. I think you probably could describe Bill Clinton as a man of the world, yet I don't remember his behavior getting any kind of forgiveness or benefit of the doubt by evangelicals. What's the difference?
Well, I was not for Donald Trump to begin with. I was a Ted Cruz guy myself, and I was turned off by the things you're kind of talking about. But I believe that the man has changed. And I try to make this point in God and Donald Trump, that God can use imperfect people. He's used imperfect leaders throughout history. You know, one example that I give is Winston Churchill. The church people of his day did not like him at all. You know, they didn't like his cigars and his brandy and his foul mouth and everything else. But yet when Britain was in its darkest hour, which is the name of the movie, they turned to Winston Churchill, and he had a sense of destiny that God had somehow raised him up to save Western civilization. I personally believe, and this is entirely speculation, that Donald Trump has some kind of sense of destiny, and I'm hoping to interview him for my next book, and I'm going to ask him that point blank. And I think this is one reason why he likes to have ministers around him, because they sort of reinforce this, that maybe somehow God has a hand in all this.
God, in your mind, intervened in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump get elected?
Absolutely.
Is he going to do it again in 2020? Do you believe that God is intervening for a two-term president, not a one-term?
You know, I think he's doing a great job. I want him to get reelected. I mean, you know, time will tell. But I believe that it was a sovereign act of God. A lot of people would disagree with me, even a lot of Christians disagree with me. And this is America. We can all have our own opinion. But this is my opinion, and I tried to put it in God and Donald Trump.
Stephen Strang's our guest. He's the author of the book called God and Donald Trump. Back to continue our conversation after these messages.